Welcome. In this tutorial, I'm going to continue in Project 5. I'm going to complete the pages all the way up to the online forms, which is really a lot easier. The online forms are on page 240, so I'm going to complete up to 239. And we're going to go over the float and clear float. Then I'm going to point out a few things that don't impress me in the site, but we're not going to make the changes because the book is not asking us to make these changes, at least yet. So I don't want you to do it. We're going to stick strictly to the book, and then I will add my little comments to entice some of these things here and hope that it will improve your experience. So we're going to talk about float and clear. Remember, the left float allows items to float from left to right, so everything is not on the same line. Just think of it as Microsoft Word. When you type a word and you type the next word, it stays on the same line. But if you hit the Enter key, then of course it goes to the next line. This is exactly the same as Dreamweaver. Every element is considered to be what is called a block element, which means that one will be piled right on top of the others unless you change it to either float left or float right. That allows the items to flow until it runs out of space on the line. So that's explained on the top of page 228. So we're going to open up the file Cupcakes Every Day, which I have over here. It looks kind of ugly. So we're going to make it look a little better. Now you notice that the book shows this nice little pink thing up top over here, and that's done with a gradient. We're not going to worry about that right now. I'm going to go in live view, and then you can see that over there, how beautiful that looks. So one of the things we're going to do is create a class that's going to scale an image. I am not a fan of it. However, in this case, it's not a big deal because you have a small image and you're not going to make it much smaller. If you have a large image and you make it smaller, then the problem is the image is still the same size, it just appears smaller. So if you click on the image, you can see it's 170 by 170, and we're just going to make it 150 by 150. You could actually save the image with the new dimensions, but we're not going to do that right now. So again, it does tell you as a general rule you should avoid scaling images within Dreamweaver without resampling because the web server will have to transmit all the data of the original size. It's just going to show it smaller. So we're going to move to number 2, and we're actually going to create a class now. Remember, a class is something that you can apply to as many elements as you want. So creating a class does nothing until you actually apply it to a specific element. So we're going to use the designer, of course, and we're going to create a new class. Make sure that you always click in styles. Even though we only have one, there's going to be times that you may have 2 or 3 over here. So we're going to click on New Selector. And going to type in period image. Remember, all classes begin with a period. 150, that's going to be the width. And boom. Now, I'm not a big fan of this because what happens if the designer tells you, hey, maybe we want to make it 160 by 160, then a class that says image 150 doesn't actually make sense anymore. But that's life in a big city, so we're just going to deal with that. So we're going to change the width and the height. To 150. That takes care of that. We're going to put a margin left and a margin right of 0.5. That'll put a little bit of spacing between the edge and the text. So we'll go to margin left here and put in 5. Notice you don't need to put in the PX. It'll add it for you. If it doesn't, just go back and change it. Margin bottom is going to be 10. And we want float left. which is here. Now notice absolutely nothing happens. So let me go and click on this, put our show set. I know I can do this. And you can see what's set there, or we can go into the styles, go all the way down at the bottom, and you can see that we have that over here. Now I'm going to hit the enter key here to get it on the next line. So we have width, height, margin left, margin right, margin bottom, and float. And I'm going to save this. So let's go back to our live view, and we're going to apply it. There's more than one way to apply it, but we're just going to actually do it the way the book tells it to. So I'm going to click on this image here, and I can apply it from here, or I can apply it from there. Either way, we'll do the same thing. I'm going to apply it from right here, and I'm going to choose image 150. Now notice it does not have the dot there because these are all classes, so it really doesn't need to have a class dot. So we'll put that here, and boom. Notice that this moved over to the left, the text moved over to the right, and then this shoved its way up there. So obviously that really did not help anything. And that's why we're going to use something called clear float over here. So that takes care of number 3. And number 4, we need to fix that by clicking on the confetti cupcake number, which is right here. So we're clicking on that. And then what it wants us to do is go into the properties panel. And we already have a rule for H2. So we're going to click on this, and we're going to click on Edit Rule. And notice it brings up a little screen, and these are all the things that are there for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Box, and we're going to go to Clear, and we're going to do both. And what will happen is that'll force it to go to another line. So let's click on OK and see what happens. And boom. So you can see that went to the other line. Now notice the little space here is the margin bottom. So if I were to increase the margin bottom here on image 150, let's just make it 20 just for the heck of it, and we'll change it back. So you can see it did do that. So you may like that. And maybe I missed it, and maybe it was 20. Nope, 10. All right, so let's change it back to 10. Okay, and there we go. So now we have this over here. That was number 6. That was number 7. And boom. So we're back to regular mode over here. This is the HTML mode over here. This allows us to edit the CSS. That takes care of that. So we're going to, and we're going to scroll down, and we're going to apply the image 150 class to each image. Now, those of you that are smart can figure out, say, why can't we just apply a rule to everyone in the section, every image in the section? And yes, we could if we wanted to create a tag, another section inside of that and call it whatever we wanted to call it. We could do that, but because the book is not telling us to do that, I'm not going to do it. So we're just going to click on every one of these here and apply the class. What the book is really doing is having you do things the hard way to some degree, and then we're going to experiment, and I'm going to show you some easier ways to do things. So that takes care of that. Takes care of this. This one here. Okay, so I'm a big fan of saving, so let's save everything here. Make sure everything's good. All right, well, this looks okay. but it's kind of, I don't really like the pictures right on top of each other. Make sure also on 231 on the bottom, just read through the CS mode of the properties panel. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually add a multiple class to the elements. So we're going to do it one way, and then I'm going to show you a second way to do it, which you may think is easier and which you may not like. So I'm on page 232, and I'm going to start at number 1 over here. We're in live view, and in code view pane, we're going to scroll to the end of existing code, and we're going to place the insertion point for image right there. Press enter, and we're going to add a new class. That's really exciting. So let's go down and do that. Let's go down over here. And we're going to call this image float right. Now remember, you must put in the tag. So we have image, and it uses capital letters, which I don't like, but that's okay. I'm going to use the curly bracket, which opens everything up. I'm going to hit the enter key here. Now I'm going to type in an F and an L and an O, and finally it's going to find float. And notice that it does have the code hints and so on and so forth. And then it wants us to add the float right. So we just scroll down here and make sure that you add the semicolon. Now it will work without the semicolon only because there's one property. If there was more than one property, it would not work. So now we have this already for us. So I'm going to save it again. Now we're going to go back to live view. And I'm going to scroll up top here. And we're going to go to the cupcake one under confetti. Because we're in live view, we get to do it this way. So I'm going to click the plus here. And I'm going to add a class ID. So all we're going to do is type dot I, and there's our image float right. And as soon as I do that, it's going to move the image to the right. So now you're going to go, I don't understand how come this is happening. And the reason it's happening is because the image float right is after the image float left, which is defined in the image 150. Remember, whatever happens last wins. So maybe that's a play of whoever last best. But anyway, whatever rule comes last is the one that gets applied. So we take care of this. We're going to do the same thing to this one. And we're going to type in image float right. So let me show you what code view looks like. I'm going to go into code view, and we need to be in the source code. And we have image float left and image float right. So if you didn't want to keep doing that, you could copy the image float right, and every other one, make sure that you have a space. And do that. So let's go back into live and see what we have. So this is right, this is right, this is right. Now the disadvantages of doing that is you could very easily put that in the wrong one. This way you can't. So, but I wanted to show you that it can be done that way. Okay, so we're taking care of that.